right, it is 2 p.m., so we will get started. Well, good afternoon, everyone. We are so happy to have you here with us today. On behalf of the Mary Slocumb Chapter, National Society Daughters of the American Revolution, and our co-host, the Mooresville Museum, it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's program, From Resolve to Resolution, Voices of Young Patriots. As our nation approaches its 250th anniversary of American independence, we gather not only to remember the courage of the founding generation, but to also renew our commitment to the ideals of liberty, service, and responsible citizenship. Today, we honor the voices that helped shape a nation and the enduring principles that continue to guide America 250 years later. Please stand for the invocation.
Good afternoon. Our scripture for today is Psalms 100, verse 5. For the Lord is good, his mercy is everlasting, and his truth endureth to all generations. Would you pray along with me in your faith and tradition as I pray in mine? As we gather today, keep us ever mindful of the many blessings you have bestowed on us through the courage and sacrifices of those who have sought to secure our freedoms through the generations. Open our hearts and minds to the many lessons and experiences of this day. Lift us up. We ask this in gratitude. Amen.
Thank you, Judy. Please remain standing for the presentation of colors by the Mecklenburg Chapter Sons of the American Revolution.
Color guard, attention. Carry colors. To the front, call. March on, march. Color guard, halt. To the left, face. Present, arms.
At this time, members of the Mecklenburg Chapter Sons of the American Revolution will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our theme today is the voices of young patriots. As we remember the young men and women whose courage helped shape our nation's history, we are pleased to welcome a talented young vocalist who represents the future of that story. Please remain standing and welcome Charlotte Marie of Tosco Music as she sings our national anthem.
Oh, say, can... Oh, sorry. Is it good now? There we go. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave in the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Color guard, carry colors. By the right about face. Post colors. Left face. To the front, march.
Thank you so much. Please be seated. It is my privilege to welcome our honored guests, distinguished participants, and friends as we gather to commemorate the approaching 250th anniversary of American independence. We are especially honored by the presence of Ms. Cricket Krigler, State Regent of the North Carolina Daughters of the American Revolution. Madam State Regent, would you please bring greetings and introduce your state officers?
Thank you. So I guess I will introduce state officers first. Okay. So please join me in welcoming Janet Westbrook, who is the state vice regent. I'm going to make you stay standing. I love to do that. And then we have Jenny Tolson, who is the North Carolina State Chaplain. And you may be seated. And I think that's all for the officers, but may I continue on? Okay, thank you. We have Lynn Ashcraft, who is the State America 250 Chair. So will you stand and will you please greet her? And I believe that's it. Is there anyone else? Awesome. So good afternoon, and thank you for having me here today. And I am bringing greetings from around 8,000 North Carolina daughters and 104 chapters. So as we celebrate America 250, we honor the courage, sacrifice, and vision of those patriots who secured our nation's independence. It is especially fitting to gather with the chapter bearing the name of Mary Slocumb, whose story reminds us that ordinary citizens can make extraordinary contributions in the times of need. So I want to thank all of you for caring about our history and for preserving our history, promoting patriotism, and inspiring future generations. So on behalf of the North Carolina Society Daughters of the American Revolution, congratulations on your America 250 celebration, and may we continue to honor our past while we proudly shape our future. And I just want to say that the decorations are absolutely amazing. You and your chapter, Mary Slocumb chapter, you're probably going to do this later, but Mary Slocumb, will you please stand? Thank you, ladies. And I also want to say the table decorations in the next room where we're going to be partaking in snacks and goodies, they are absolutely exquisite. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam State Regent. We are also honored to welcome the Honorable Todd Carver, State Representative from North Carolina, Mr. Dana Tucker, Commissioner, Town of Mooresville, Mr. Stephen McKee, President of the North Carolina Society Sons of the American Revolution, Mr. Chad Lloyd, President of the Mecklenburg Chapter Sons of the American Revolution, Mrs. Susan Autry, President of the Mooresville Museum, and Mr. David Whitlow, Museum Director and Treasurer. He may still be out finishing up the tour. We are grateful for your presence today and your partnership in our shared mission. We are also pleased to welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. Tony Zeiss, and we look forward to hearing from him later in the program. At this time, I would like to recognize the veterans and active duty members of the United States Armed Forces that are with us today. If you are able, please stand so we may express our gratitude for your service to our nation. Thank you for your continued example of patriotism and sacrifice. The road to independence was not forged in a single moment, but through courageous resolve, sacrifice, and unwavering belief in liberty. As each founding document is presented today, a ceremonial bell will ring in remembrance of the enduring call of freedom that still echoes across generations. May we never forget that the flame of liberty must be faithfully carried from one generation to the next. To present selections from the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence, I am honored to introduce Ms. Janet Westbrook, Vice Regent of the North Carolina Society Daughters of the American Revolution.
On May 20th, 1775, local leaders gathered in Charlotte and adopted what became known as the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence, a bold declaration that the colonies were free and independent from British rule more than a year before the Declaration of Independence was signed. Today I'll share several key resolves from that historic document. Resolve 1, resolve that whosoever directly or indirectly abets or in any way, form, or manner countenances the unchartered and dangerous invasion of our rights as claimed by Great Britain is an enemy to this country, to America, and to the inherent and inalienable rights of man. Resolve 2, resolve that we, the citizens of Mecklenburg County, do hereby dissolve the political bands which have connected us to the mother country and hereby absolve ourselves from all allegiance to the British Crown. Resolve 3, resolve that we hereby declare ourselves a free and independent people under the control of no power other than that of our God and the general government of the Congress. Resolve 4, resolve that all commissions, civil and military, heretofore granted by the Crown to be exercised in these colonies are null and void. Resolve 6, resolve that all military officers in this country formerly appointed by the King and Parliament shall henceforth hold their commissions independent of the Crown. Historical accounts also tell us that Colonel Thomas Polk publicly read these resolves to the community on May 20th, 1775, marking a powerful early call for liberty in North Carolina.
Thank you, Mrs. Westbrook. May the voice of liberty continue to ring through every generation. To present the Halifax resolves, please welcome Ms. Susan Autry, President of the Mooresville Museum.
Good afternoon. On April 12th, 1776, in the small town of Halifax, North Carolina, became the first colony to officially authorize its delegates to vote for independence from Great Britain. The Halifax Resolves marked a turning point in America's path toward independence and helped pave the way for the Declaration of Independence just a few months later. At a time when many colonies were still uncertain about separating from Great Britain, North Carolina's leaders boldly declared that their representatives should join with the other colonies in pursuing independence and forming alliances abroad. I will now share a key portion of the Halifax Resolves. Resolved, that the delegates for this colony in the Continental Congress be empowered to concur with the delegates of the other colonies in declaring independency and forming foreign alliances, reserving to this colony the sole and exclusive right of forming a constitution and laws for this country. For this colony, excuse me. With these resolves, North Carolina became the first colony to officially call for independence, helping light the path toward the birth of a new nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Autry. The call for independence begun by these patriots still inspires Americans today. At this time, we will hear selections from the Declaration of Independence. You guys can come on in and have a seat. There's space. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have the full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. 250 years later, the words of independence still ring with hope, courage, and conviction. Let us pause for a brief moment of remembrance in honor of the patriots whose sacrifice secured the blessings of liberty for future generations. As we reflect on the courage and conviction of those who shaped our nation's founding, we are honored to hear from a leader whose life and leadership have impacted countless people across North Carolina and beyond. Dr. Tony Zeiss is President Emeritus of Central Piedmont Community College, where he faithfully served for 25 years and helped transform the institution into one of the nation's leading community colleges and became nationally recognized for workforce development and educational innovation. Throughout his remarkable career, Dr. Zeiss has been recognized as an educator, an author, historian, speaker, and visionary leader. His work and career has impacted education, workforce development, civic leadership, and historic preservation. But to me, Tony is more than just an accomplished leader. He has been a trusted mentor, a source of wisdom and encouragement, and one of the kindest friends I could ever ask for. One of the greatest blessings of my life was doing a group travel through Israel with Tony and his wife, Beth. Through that experience and through many conversations over the years, I've come to appreciate even more deeply their faith, their kindness, their generosity, and their genuine investment into the lives of others. Tony has spent much of his life helping others understand that leadership is ultimately about service, character, and investing in future generations. I cannot think of a more fitting person to help us reflect on the legacy of America's founding and the importance of passing those values on to future generations. Please join me in warmly welcoming my dear friend, Dr. Tony Zeiss.
Wow, what an introduction. You know, the great thing about America is that it's okay to show your joy. We need to be a rejoicing people, let people know this is a wonderful place to live, the best in the history of the world. That means we should say things like, huzzah! For Michelle and all of her folks, and Susan and the museum, let's hear two huzzahs. Hip, hip! Huzzah! Hip, hip! Huzzah! Way to go. All right. Well, that pretty much says it. I thought about a lot of things, and you know, when you get into history, we all love history. There's so many things we could talk about, but I focus on young people. You know, and today, unfortunately, in our public schools in particular, we don't teach American history very much. In North Carolina, it's pretty much one class when they're sixth graders. And frankly, I talked to a bunch of seventh graders several years back, and I said, when was did you learn about the American Revolution? They said, yes, oh yes, last year. I said, great, who were we fighting? Here's what, they didn't know. So they talked with each other, and one group, I said, what'd you come up with? They said, France, we were fighting France. Next group says, oh, no, it was Russia. Yeah, anyway, they didn't get it, you got the point. So I focus on teenagers, and guess what? More than 50% of all of the participants in the Revolutionary War were teenagers. So that's my topic today, that's what we'll talk about. First of all, in the 1700s, they didn't even use the term teenager. Well, why? Because by about age 13, they were already considered to be adults and responsible for themselves. In fact, think about it, it was an agrarian society. Everybody had to work on the farm. You know, from their 4 years of age, you're getting the eggs from the hens and so on. You're helping out. Everybody helps out. And that's the way it worked. So people tended to grow up pretty quickly. I'm thinking about the bar mitzvahs. They were about 13. That's the age. Think about that. And then we've got people who are in their 30s still living with mom and dad. You know, something's not quite right. So, but nevertheless, I'm going to be profiling Patriot young people, okay, today. Typically, I'll do 5 or 6 or 8 maybe, but today I think because it's a special day, the 250th, I'm going to try to get in at least 12 or 13. But instead of giving 2 or 3 things out of their memoirs or their diaries, you're going to hear their voices. This is what they say. I'm going to share with you what they said. I'm only going to give one story. I don't have a whole lot of time to do that. They're very courageous, as you can imagine. Think about it when they're young folks. Many boys as young as 10 years old were right in the thick of the battle. They weren't just drummers. They did lots of things. 10 years old. Amazing. Young girls, too, as a matter of fact, they contributed greatly. What'd they do? Well, who ran the farms when the men and the boys were all fighting? The women. They did that. Plus, they were trying to sew socks. They couldn't find socks. They sewed clothes for them. All those sorts of things. They made the food for them. Think about that. And they made great spies. Why? You go, listen, all those guys fighting out there and those officers, they looked down at these young innocent girls. They were so innocent, they couldn't be spying against me. Of course they were. Anyway. So where did we recruit? Where did we get young people to fight? You're sitting in one, churches. In an agrarian society, of course, I don't think I even need that. In an agrarian society, as you know, the social setting for the entire community was the church. That was it. And so they would recruit in the churches. And guess who they recruited first? They recruited the pastor probably, or the elder, certainly the elders, and they became the senior officers. And then they went down to the deacons, and they became the junior officers. Guess who were the privates? Teenagers, exactly, and that's what we're going to hear from. We tend to think that most of our Revolutionary War leaders were old, right, as we think back, through that. Listen to this. James Monroe, you know about James Monroe. He was only 18 years old, leading like that. John Quincy Adams, the son of the second president, he was only 13 during 1776 when his father sent him to Russia as secretary to the U.S. ambassador in the court of Catherine the Great. And they say he spoke at least 5 different languages. 13 years old. How about this? Now here's our, let's see, a slide, I'm told. John, thank you. All right, there's a slide, and you can see it up there, or see it behind me. Oops. We didn't get those lights turned off. Can you see that slide? Okay. So what I want to point out there, that's the Boston Massacre. And it's sad that so many people had to die. I think like 12 of them, but they had to die, but it sparked the flame for the revolution, as you can imagine. Samuel Maverick and James Caldwell, they were both 17 years of age. Their names are up there on that tombstone. They were both killed in the Boston Massacre on March 5th, 1770. Samuel was killed he was in the crowd. He was killed by a ricocheting British musket ball. And then 2 musket balls ended James's life. And by the way, they shot him in the back. Can you imagine? So no wonder people were getting riled up about it. Let's go to the next slide. This is Peter Francisco. He was a Portuguese immigrant in the Virginia colony. He joined the army at age 16 in 1776. He fought with great valor in several battles, won a lot of awards, including the bold attack by Mad Anthony Wayne on the British Fort Stony Point on the Hudson River north of New York. And he was the guy, they thought so much of him, he's the one who hoisted the American flag over that fort. Let's go to the next slide. Andrew Jackson. How many of you know Andrew Jackson? All right, how about a huzzah for Andrew Jackson? Hip hip. All right. They argue about where the state line was, whether he was in North Carolina or South Carolina. I have it on a great authority, which is my own, and that he was born in North Carolina. He did later live in South Carolina, so there you go. He joined the fight with his 2 older brothers, and I couldn't prove it because I couldn't find the age of one of them, but I think they were also teenagers down in, let's see, I've forgotten the date, I don't have it. Anyway, it would have been probably 1780. All right, so get this, 2 older brothers, and he was 9 years old. 9 years old. His father had died shortly after he was born, so he was out of the question. They had 3 boys and a mother, and she was a courageous mother. Stono, one of the first battles down there was a Stono River battle, and one of the boys was killed there. That left John, his older brother, and Andrew, and they got captured and were put in prison in Charleston, and they pretty quickly caught smallpox like everybody else did. And the mother came down from Waxhaw and got them out, and somehow finagled a prisoner exchange, got them out, tended to them. Brother John still died from smallpox. She caught the disease and she died from smallpox. And there was this Andrew, 14 years of age, he was an orphan. But he became our 7th president, didn't he? Let's go to the next one. Sybil Ludington. I just love this. And Beth and I have seen this. We've been up there. We had to stop and take pictures and be with this wonderful. They made a statue for her on the left. Isn't she beautiful? All right. She was 16 years old, and she was called the female Paul Revere. Somebody should write a poem about her. Maybe it'd be famous. All right. She rode a horse 40 miles during the nighttime to alert a local militia members of another town that the British were coming. They were going to attack in 1777. Her courage helped that militia gather their troops to fend off the attack, and they built this statue to her. Isn't it fantastic? And by the way, I'm reminded that I should tell you Paul Revere only rode 14 miles. Hip, hip. 15-year-old new slide. 15-year-old Deborah Sampson cut her hair, bound her chest, and tailored her uniform to look just like a man or a boy, and she joined the Patriot Army. She became known, she gave herself a name, Robert Shirtliff. You can look it up. She served for 3 years fighting alongside her male counterparts against the Loyalists and the British, because it was like a civil war at the time, you know, of course. So they had to fight against both of them. She was removed, she did that for 3 years. Then she was wounded twice. And one of the wounds was so bad, she cut the first one out by herself with some sort of a needle or bayonet, something. And then the second one she couldn't get out. She had to go to the infirmary. They discovered that she was a girl. They mustered her out of the military. However, they gave her a pension. Wasn't that good? Hip, hip. Now let's listen to what I promised you can hear their voices. I'm going to have to refer to these books to make sure I read accurately and I don't exaggerate some of these things like I tend to do. This first one is from Thomas Young. He's really my favorite youngster in all of the war so far, and it's so favorite that Beth and I did a lot of research. We've been every place he fought, everything he did pretty much, and I wrote a book about him, and it's called The Backcountry Fury, a 16-year-old patriot in the Revolutionary War. And he wrote his memoirs. This gave me the basis for the book, and it's really, really amazing. His mother wouldn't let him go in because his older brother John was in, and her husband was in the Little River militia, and actually they were cavalry. And that's over just south of Spartanburg in Lorain County. And so she wouldn't let him go in and said, oh no, we need a man at the farm. And she meant the man. He was 16, he was pretty old. Anyway, but guess what? A guy named Adam Steedham, he was a fence sitter. He'd pretend to be a loyalist, and then he'd pretend to be a patriot and go back and forth. And he told Bloody Bill Cunningham, the most vile guy in this part of the country at that time, who was, of course, a loyalist, and he killed people just wantonly. Nevertheless, Adam Steedham told him where they were camped, and John, his brother, was killed. And there was no keeping him out of it. He joined the same militia. His mother couldn't keep him out. He joined same messmate and so on and so forth. You'll hear more about him a little later. Anyway, I do want you to know, I did bring a few copies of this book. If you're interested, if you know or love young people, believe me, they need this book. All right, where are we? Says I need to read page 75. There we go. Here we go. Here we go. Listen to this. These are his words. He says, Colonel Williams, James Williams, South Carolina, is colonel of that particular unit. Colonel Williams rushed past me on his horse, urging us to move forward. Just then, a Tory ball hit his horse in the jaw, and that animal commenced stamping like he'd stepped on a nest of yellow jackets. Forward, men, he jumped off the horse. Forward, men, let's take this hill, he shouted. This is at the Battle of Kings Mountain. Most of you have been there. He's taken the hill, all right? And of course, Patrick Bulldog Ferguson and his men are up there trying to keep them from doing it. My messmates fought alongside of me, but the smoke was so thick I could only see a few people. We charged up the hill, but the enemy unleashed volley after volley of musket fire, and we stalled. I stood behind one tree for a good long time, and they fired at me until the bark was nearly knocked off and my eyes got pretty well filled with it. As each shot exploded on the side of the tree, hundreds of tiny projectiles flew in every direction. One fellow shaved me pretty close when a bullet knocked a piece out of my gun stock. Was he in the thick of it? 16 years old. And I didn't tell you. I forgot. He was barefoot. His shoes wore out. And he decided, I can't run up and down that mountain with floppy soles on them. He just threw them in the brush. He was barefooted. And they had 3 bayonet charges. Of course, the British provincials, which were really Americans trained by the British, who came down. Can you imagine? And he still won it. Major Ferguson was killed. He said in his memoirs he saw him get 8 or 9 bullets shot into him at one time. He's still there today. Well, what's left of him is still there. Colonel Williams, unfortunately, received a mortal wound just after he had written about this, because he was leading the charge, and he died the very next day. And of course, Thomas, he was really wanted to get revenge for what they'd done to his brother and to now Colonel and so on and so forth. Let's see, let's go to the, oh, I forgot. Let me tell you about page 97, Mary Dillard. He said in his memoirs that Mary Dillard was the fairest lady in all of the Loren County down there. She was beautiful, and they all loved her. She joined her major, her husband, who was a major in the same unit, and she taught those boys how to make cobbler and do all those things, and was always being nice to them. She was quite brave herself, and she left her children at the Battle of Blackstocks, and that's over in South Carolina, same area. And that's where we had, the Gamecock, Thomas Sumter. By the way, how many of you have any association with South Carolina University? Yeah, you know what, I'm telling you, the last 5 young people I've talked to that go to that university have no idea who the Gamecock was. Thomas Sumter, all right. Yeah, all right, so Sumter had it all lined up. He got them up. We had the high ground, and Thomas writes about this in his memoirs. They had the high ground, and they're waiting for Bannister Tarleton and his green-coated dragoons riding out, and the infantry behind him. And he wanted to get revenge because they lost it, at Kings Mountain. And so he outran his infantry, of course. That was his big mistake. And he tied all of his horses together down in some pines. And he made them get off and fight as if they were infantry. And they ran into, of course, Thomas Sumter, and they lost. And right toward the end of that, listen to this, Thomas says, someone shouted, "Would you look at that?" Somebody else said, "It's a woman leading a string of horses 50 or 60 yards long." "That's no woman," Bobo said. "That's Mary Dillard. She's captured Tarleton's horses." There she was with Joe Kerr walking out of the woods by the creek. She led at least 50 saddled horses, and we loved it. Is that a hip hip? We enjoyed thinking about Tarleton's horseless men walking all the way back to Winsboro. All right, next slide, let's go. Joseph Plum Martin. Joseph Plum Martin was from Connecticut. He was living with his grandfather, helping him with his farm at the time, and he was only 13. He joined up, probably to get out from under his grandfather, but anyway, he was 13, and he joined up, and he stayed through the whole war, which was 8 years long. He stayed in and got out at age 21. So let's see what he has to say. Here we go. This is just one thing. He was at Valley Forge, okay? Here we go. He's writing this. He says this. "The Army continued at and near the Gulf for some days, after which we marched for the Valley Forge in order to take up our winter quarters. We were now in a truly forlorn condition. No clothing, no provisions, and as disheartened as could be. We arrived, however, at our destination a few days before Christmas. Our prospect was indeed dreary. Our miserable condition to go into the wild woods and build us habitations to stay in such a weak, starved, and naked condition was appalling to the highest degree, especially to New Englanders unaccustomed to such kinds of hardship at home. However, there was no remedy, no alternative, but this or dispersion. Dispersion, of course, was out of the question. Hip, hip. Isn't that? Think about that. It's amazing. All right, let's go to the next one. How about Robert Henry? All right. Robert Henry. How many of you have heard of the South Fork Boys? Anybody heard of South Fork Boys? All right, South Fork of the Catawba, which is right up here in Lincolnton. You pass it if you go up on 321. He lived in that area, and he was 13 years old, and his father said, "Son, you're going with me. Let's go. We're going to join up. They've got something really big going on, and I'm going to read it to you. Listen to this." He says, "We've got to go to Charlotte." So he grabbed his 13-year-old boy, and Robert, and they went to Charlotte. Here he is. We left home on Thursday, May 18th. We headed east toward Charlotte. We witnessed a stir, we got to Charlotte. We witnessed a stir of activity when the people were gathering in from all the surrounding country. Attendees commenced their deliberations in the courthouse that evening. A 13-year-old is writing like this. They were well educated. He says, people were gathering from all, he says, commenced their deliberations in the courthouse that evening. McDitt, Alexander, and Polk, Mr. Polk, were active participants in the meeting. While engaged in the discussions, the delegates received word that 1 month prior, the Battle of Lexington had been fought in Massachusetts. The delegates were outraged, and they passed a series of resolutions at about 2 o'clock that night. The May 20th, 1775 resolutions became known, I understand, as the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence. And we have these fools who say it didn't happen. Who are you going to believe? Them or a 13-year-old who witnessed it? Hip, hip. Thank you. All right, who have I got? All right. I might say that Robert bravely fought at Kings Mountain, and I learned this really from Steve McKee, and who first introduced it, our state president of the SAR. Robert bravely fought at Kings Mountain on October 7, 1780. He recalled that as they neared the top of the mountain, Patrick Ferguson's British provincials charged down the hill with fixed bayonets and loaded muskets. Robert was able to shoot and kill his attacker just before the deflected bayonet skewered him through his left hand and pinned it to his left thigh. He was completely immobilized, he wrote about this, and said that he was helpless. He said, I lay still because the mixture of partisans and provincials were fighting back and forth all around me. Finally, a friend came by and kicked the bayoneted musket free from Robert's hand and thigh. And Robert said it hurt worse coming out than going in. But I reloaded my rifle and I fought to the end of the battle. Hip, hip. Okay, let's go on. James Collins, he's from Mecklenburg County, right here. And he went on and he wrote his memoirs. And he wrote his autobiography. But I've taken this one thing that I'll share, well, several things, but one important thing, really important. And here's what he said. He starts out his autobiography. No opinion of man can set aside the law of God. Do you hear that? That's profound. We could be using that today, could we not? It is a lamentable error in the faculty of man to seek any means to contradict God's rules. How's that pretty cool, I think? James Collins, 16 years old. He was first recruited to spy on the enemy, and he said, I did it pretty well. I went everywhere, and I went into the taverns and all of that, and I just listened. And he said, I would go tell about moving munitions or moving goods or food, etc., or moving troops toward another city for some sort. And he says, I succeeded for some time without the slightest suspicion, by which the Tories were several times disappointed in their plans without being able to account for the cause. Let's hear it for James. Hip, hip. Okay. He also fought with General Sumter, the Gamecock, and he was at Fishing Creek. You know about that when Bannister Tarleton's men came in and hacked them all up. They came in right at night. They'd gotten off their horses. They were just going to bed. The Gamecock escaped in his BVDs, by the way. But here's what he said. No quarter was given. The dead and wounded lay scattered on every direction over the field. Numbers lay stretched cold and lifeless. They were yet struggling in the agonies of death, while here and there lay others faint with the loss of blood, famished for water, and begging assistance. Here's what he said about Bloody Bill Cunningham. Remember I told you about him? Tories were everywhere threatening us and our neighbors, including women and children. Cunningham is a man who will be cursed for generations to come. He created indiscriminate suffering. Women were insulted and stripped of every particle of clothing they might have on, and bedding and supperware and the like were stolen. Not a piece of meat or a pint of salt was left in the homes he pillaged. If they found a sick man in the house, they would drag him outside and put him to death in front of his wife and children. Well, Thomas Young said later in the end of his memoirs, Yorktown was over. It was 3 months afterwards, but the state of South Carolina gave them 3 months to get their, the Tories, the Loyalists, the Tories, to get their things together and get out of the state. And so Bloody Bill was still there. He had 300 people, and he assassinated 18 of Thomas's friends, militia buddies they caught. He says he set on, they were having a battle, a fight, and they ambushed them. Anyway, they put them on ropes and carried them out and killed 18 of them, including Colonel Williams, remember, who died at the Battle of Kings Mountain? He had 2 sons, Daniel, who went to church with Thomas, and his little brother, Joseph. His brother Joseph was 11, and I'll tell you what happened. Basically, he killed all these other guys, and then he had Daniel, who's 17-year-old, and he hanged him. And little Joseph came up. He knew him. They were neighbors. He said, "Mr. Cunningham, what shall I tell my mother?" He says, "Tell her this," and stabbed him to death. Folks, these things, we tend to think that it's almost poetic sometimes when we think back about these things. It wasn't. It was horrible. It was a terrible thing. We owe them all the devotion that we can give them as we celebrate this 250th. Date. Let me wrap up with two I'm going to share with you, 2 final ones. The first one is an African American named James Fortin. He was 15 years old. He joined the Navy in Philadelphia, and he fought in all these ships. And he told in one account where everybody on his ship was wounded but him. He led a charmed life. All right? And so let's see, page 130. Here we go. Let me read this to you. He says while he was a prisoner, an officer of the American Navy was about to be exchanged for a British prisoner. So he conceived the idea of an easy escape for himself by climbing into the officer's chest, big chest, and so because he was going to get out. When he was about to he says, when I was about to avail myself of this opportunity, I thought of the young fellow prisoner, Daniel Bruton. I immediately urged Daniel to hop in the chest, which he did. And then he assisted Fortin of carrying the chest down, which was probably, they thought, a chest of old clothes or something, and down and got out. And he says, later on, however, in 1837, the 2 of us, former prisoners, we met again and recalled the incident. And Daniel, by that time, had become a captain in the U.S. Navy. We all need to get back to where we were. Hip, hip. There you go. All right. Now let's go to Eliza Young. And she's, if you look her up, if I can get to her, it's really, you'll find her under Eliza Wilkinson, but that's her married name. I'm using Eliza Young because that was her name when she wrote her diary. And she was 15 years old. This was in 1779 after Charleston fell. Here's from her diary. Let's see. Okay. In comes a bunch of British people on their horses. All right, here you go. They were uttering the most abusive language imaginable and making as if they'd hew us to pieces with their swords. They came into her house. But it's not in my power to describe the scene. It was terrible to the last degree. They then began to plunder the house and everything they thought valuable or worth taking. Our trunks were split to pieces, and each mean, pitiful wretched crammed his bosom with the contents, which included our own apparel. We're not going to huzzah that. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope this gives you some little insight into the teenagers that we have. And thank God we were born in America. We need to save this country no matter what. Stand up for this country. And you do it through truth. and there's only one truth, and this is Tony's eye speaking. You can quote me, and that's God's truth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Zeiss. That was amazing. One of the most meaningful ways we preserve history is through art that captures both the moments and the spirit of those who came before us. Today, we are honored to present a special commissioned work created as a gift to the people of North Carolina in commemoration of America's 250th anniversary through the partnership and vision of the Sons of the American Revolution. If you're in that group, please stand up while we, if you're in the SAR, please stand so we can. We are grateful to the North Carolina Society Sons of the American Revolution for helping preserve and share this important chapter of our state's history. At this time, we are honored to welcome artist Mr. Dan Nance, who will present his work depicting the signing of the Halifax Resolves on April 12, 1776.
Sitting there listening to Tony and everyone's speaking. I'm so excited, but I'm parched already and I haven't even spoken yet. So let me get this going. Wet my lips so that I can spin a yarn or two. Thank you again, everybody. America, 250th, here we are. It's amazing. I'm really inspired by everything that's happening these days, and I just wanted to first admit that this piece is not the new piece that we just were describing. So, but we'll get to that. Maybe a little bit about me. My name is Dan. I am a Carolinian, and I paint history for a living. I've made a career of painting stories from the past, painting momentous events from America, from world history, things like that. And the mission is to inspire those that are here now that can take that forward and do their own type of inspiration for the next generation. It's all about passing something forward and then doing that by example. And it comes from many different places. It comes from those that you think most is going to do it and they fail. And so it's the other ones that rise up and do it. And we're finding that over and over again. I'll say that because I'm thinking about some of the local citizens around here and all. And I was thinking about the town. And I'm going to get to this. Everybody can hear me? I'm going to walk around. That's what I do. Is that okay? You can still hear me. I'm driving up from Charlotte, so I'm in Charlotte. I've been painting history all my life, and I've painted many battle scenes, many pivotal moments, but I had not painted. I painted the Civil War for 10, 15 years straight. And then I said, my goodness, and Tony and I go way back. Tony met me when I was very young, right out of college, and I was painting illustrations for historical magazines. And Tony invited me to speak with his group, and he got to know me and kind of took me under his wing and said, you know, this is amazing, you're doing great, but, you know, this gets you out there so you can meet people and get to the place where you can really share these stories. And so we started doing that, and I painted the Revolutionary War a little bit, I painted the Native Americans, and I realized one day that I had not painted Charlotte area stuff. I painted all this stuff, Philadelphia, Waterloo, all these places. Didn't think about my stuff until I saw Chas Fagan's sculpture. We all know one of our local, heroes is Captain Jack. Captain Jack and his great sculpture that I got. Boy, that struck something in me, and I said, you know what? I'd like to try to make some kind of contribution like that. So I went home and I studied the Battle of Charlotte, which takes place much into the war in 1780 when they passed through here. And I painted that painting, and it was just going to be another one of my scenes in the portfolio. But But let's look back a little bit further. I'm from the Carolinas. I grew up in Columbia. I was born in Raleigh. My family goes way back. The Nances go all the way back. We've been here for a while. I think the first Nance came over in 1622. He was on the second boat, I think, just like the Nances. They so I'm gonna try the second boat. We'll get over there. We'll get over there eventually. So we've been here a long time. And growing up in the Carolinas, my first inspirations were from going around to battlefields, from Charleston, Fort Sumter. My father and grandfather and mother would take me out to these battlefields, and I would go to 96, South Carolina, where my family's from, and see this tiny fort and stand on there, and they'd say, "Can you imagine all the British soldiers in red coming out of the trees?" And I was like, "Yeah, I actually can." So I'd go home and really would draw those things in crayon, and then went to pencil, and then went to paint. And I just love those stories. But I also grew up in the 80s. I grew up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So with that, you also get this incredible era of wonderful entertainment. So I grew up with things like Star Wars and all of those wonderful things. And so that inspired me too, to think about heroes and villains. It was a great story about these underdogs, the rebellion against the empire, this young man going off to war, Luke Skywalker. What's his mission? Turns out he, saves the day and, inspires all. So I grew up thinking of those things, and those things inspired me. And then I went to school to be a filmmaker. I wanted to be the next, Jim Cameron, George Lucas, Spielberg, my hero, all the wonderful stuff, Spielberg. So that was my track, but I decided that instead of making big movies and all of that, I would just I would condense it down into a single frame and try to make that apex moment there. And so that's been my career. But I was driving up here, and I thought I was driving up 277, and there's Alexander Boulevard, and there's Graham Street. I was like, my goodness, yeah, we're talking about this stuff. And yesterday, I'm going to pull this all together. Yesterday, I was in Charlotte. I've told this story. We've done this many, many times. So I get to tell those stories. And Janet's told the great story of the local guys and the defender of the courthouse and did those things, and Thomas Polk and those guys. Yesterday, I spent my day celebrating with our local Comic-Con. Comic-Con is in town, in Charlotte, and it's fantastic. It's going to be all 3 days. I bought a 3-day pass. I just ripped it off to come up here. So I was there yesterday, and it's called the Heroes Convention. It's HeroCon. And I was excited because I found somebody on the little list of all these artists. These are hundreds of, some of the most talented, incredible talent there. They come and they celebrate and they do their art and promote this stuff. But there were heroes from my early years that inspired me, like I mentioned Spielberg and Lucas and these guys. I got to meet one of my heroes there, and it was an illustrator of a fantasy novel from way back in the early 80s, and it was about elves and they were fighting Trojans. You could see the theme, the underdog. I got to meet them. Now, I was very excited, and I brought my little pad, and I had my little drawings that I did when I was a kid in 1988, and I was going to show. I was so excited, and I got in. I waited. All the lines was all out the door. Finally got in there, a couple hours, got in there, walked right up to them, and there they were. And it was amazing. And I got the signatures, and they were very nice. It was nice. They were in their 80s now. I didn't realize how much time has passed. I'm 50 years old. I'm like, hey, guys, and I'm like, hey, slow down, Louis. It's nice to meet you. You're such an inspiration. I got a money around town. I'll do this stuff. And they're like, okay. So you meet the heroes. Sometimes you get to meet your heroes, and I was very satisfied with that. But then I pulled back, and I thought, well, that's kind of a strange thing to pursue. That's your hero? That's one of your heroes. That's influence. But it was the autograph I was looking at. I was thinking about the autograph. I could get that autograph. And I thought about another set of autographs, and it's the autographs that are on these documents that were signed in North Carolina. The MEC deck, the Halifax Resolves. People putting their name, their life, their reputation on the line to try to change things to make things different. And with that, I was like, that's kind of cheapening the autograph a bit. It all is inspiration. The profiles encourage. Tony talked about some of these great profiles so helpful. I was thinking about a couple more that he mentioned even in that slideshow there. He had those two guys in Boston as young men. There's another one up there, Crispus Attucks, maybe the first one, African American, Bostonian. I think they credit him as one of the first shots. Giving up his life for something probably wasn't going to be offered to him in the beginning, but it was the promise of something like that, the liberty people were fighting for. Abigail Adams was telling John during all the Continental Congress, hey, remember the ladies. Just saying, remember the ladies. Down here locally, maybe inspired me again. I was thinking about someone down in York County during the siege there, the Battle of Huck's defeat. Anybody heard of that? The Battle of Huck's. Yeah, I was thinking about it the other day, though. Colonel Bratton has got his militia, and they're out around, and Colonel Huck from Tarleton's Legion comes up, and everybody knows kind of the story. What did they say? They took the house hostage. They took the Bratton family, Mrs. Bratton hostage, and the son, William Bratton Jr., I think. And right before that, when they heard the British cavalry were coming in, she called up a trusted man, a young man named Watt, and he was an enslaved person there. And he got on his horse. He said, take this note to the colonel. You got to warn them. They're coming up the road. And at that moment, I thought about, and it's been thought, Watt would know the circumstance. He knew he had to go give that note to them. But there's also a moment where he probably could have thought, I could actually go the other direction and go into Tarleton's Legion. And they said they were going to free whoever, came into the lines, free slaves, do that. But he didn't do that. He stayed with the honor of the family around him who were fighting for liberty. And he went the right way and did it. And it actually turned the tide of that battle. So that battle there, they surprised the British in the morning, and it was an American victory. And it inspired everybody around there. And it inspired the people Mecklenburgers to defend Charlotte. And all these things. So it leads to something. All these little bricks in the Liberty Wall, people building up for liberty. So those are a couple more little anecdotes and more flavors that we need to recognition. All of these people who contributed to where we are now, to this amazing thing. So with that, I was all excited. This was painted in 2010, very long time ago to me now. And I had the honor, we did get together. See, all the SER with the guys, we said, let's do a new one, Halifax Resolves, and that was I think we've been working on that for about a year, and we finally got it just right. And we got to donate it and celebrate it and commemorate it right on April 12th. So I have reproductions. I can't wait to show everybody the piece in this hall here. But that's the second one. That's the Empire Strikes Back. That's round 2 right there. North Carolina did it twice before Virginia did anything said that. I was also reading doom scrolling, looking at my feed earlier. I was like, Virginia's just celebrating their 250th. They're excited. They're like, oh, this is the day that Representative Lee sent the Continental Congress says Virginia patients with a declaration. I'm like, that's old news, dude. We did that a year ago. Get with it. I'll tell you, hurry up. Better late than never. So my mission is to honor and celebrate and try to inspire the next generation with things that have come from the past. I want to continue that mission, and I appreciate everybody having me here today, and it's just been such a wonderful time. Let's keep celebrating, and what is it time to say? Huzzah! Huzzah! Thank you all very much.
And thank you for pointing that out. I like to remind people it's America's 250th, but it's North Carolina's 251st. So thank you so much. At this time, we are honored to recognize individuals and organizations whose dedication to history, education, patriotism, and community service reflects the enduring spirit of America's founding ideals. To begin our awards presentation, I would like to invite Ms. Lynn Ashcraft, North Carolina DAR America 250 Chair, to the podium to share the significance of the DAR America 250 Commendation Award.
Thank you, Madam Reedy. Today we gather not just to present a medal, but to celebrate something truly special, people who work to bring history to life. The DAR America 250 Commemoration Medal recognizes individuals and organizations who have gone above and beyond to preserve, promote, and share the story of our nation's founding. As we approach America's 250th birthday, we are reminded that history is much more than dates to memorize or names to remember for a quiz. It is a living story carried forward by dedicated people like our recipients today. The ideals that inspired our patriot ancestors, courage, service, civic responsibility, and love of country, are just as important today as they were in 1776. Fortunately, there are individuals who make sure these ideals are not tucked away in history books somewhere on a forgotten shelf. Through education, preservation, leadership, and community service, our honorees help connect the past to the future. They remind us that America's story is still being written and that each of us has a role to play. The DAR America 250 Commemoration Medal is a recognition of past accomplishments and a heartfelt thank you for keeping the spirit of patriotism alive and for inspiring others to do the same. Please join me in congratulating our recipients and thanking them for their service, dedication, and commitment to the enduring ideals of liberty. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ashcraft. Our first DAR America 250 Commendation Award is presented to Dr. Tony Zeiss in recognition of his extraordinary leadership in education, civic engagement, and historical preservation, as well as his continued commitment to inspiring future generations through service, mentorship, and storytelling. Dr. Zeiss, would you please come forward? With you yet. We got one more thing, and it's hard to find something for the guy who has everything. So before he returns to his seat, I would like to share one additional expression of appreciation. Tony has a rare gift for making people feel seen, valued, and inspired. He leads with wisdom, humility, faith, and genuine care for others. So much of who he is happens quietly through investing in people, encouraging young leaders, preserving history, and helping others believe they can make a difference. The Mary Slocumb chapter is pleased to make a contribution to the North Carolina State Regents Project in honor of Dr. Tony Zeiss. When invited to speak at today's celebration, Dr. Zeiss graciously declined an honorarium. In recognition of his generosity, his commitment to education, leadership, and historic preservation, the countless lives, I'm so sorry, let me go back here. In recognition of his generosity, his commitment to education, leadership, historic preservation, and the countless lives he has impacted through service and mentorship, we felt there was no more fitting way to honor him. We are also pleased to make a chapter contribution to the State Regents Project as part of the continued support of our State Regent, Cricket Krigler, and her vision for the North Carolina DAR. Madam State Regent, would you please join us? Dr. Zeiss, thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today and for the example you continue to set for all of us. We are deeply grateful. Would you please join me one more time in thanking Dr. Zeiss? The next DAR America 250 Commendation Award is presented to artist Dan Nance for helping preserve and communicate America's history through art that captures both the spirit and significance of our nation's history. Through his paintings, public monuments, and decades of work interpreting America's past, Mr. Nance has helped countless people connect with the people, places, and events that helped shape our nation. Mr. Nance, would you please come back up? DAR America 250 Commendation Award is presented to the Mooresville Museum in recognition of its dedication to preserving local history, educating the community, and helping connect future generations to the stories that help shape our nation. The museum has become an invaluable steward of our community's history, preserving stories that might otherwise be lost and helping residents of all ages better understand the people and events that shape Mooresville. Ms. Audrey, would you please come forward? Thank you. You guys can fight over who gets to wear that. One more. Our final DAR America 250 Commendation Award is presented to the Mecklenburg Chapter Sons of the American Revolution in recognition of its commitment to preserving and promoting the history, principles, and patriotism of the American Revolution through education, civic engagement, ceremonial observances, and public service. Through its leadership in historic preservation, youth education, patriotic remembrance, and historical interpretation, the Mecklenburg chapter continues to connect new generations to the enduring legacy of America's founding. The chapter has also been a valued partner in America 250 initiatives across our region and has worked diligently to ensure that the stories and sacrifices of our patriot ancestors continue to be remembered and shared. Mr. Chad Lloyd, would you please come forward and accept this medal? Please join me in congratulating all of our DAR America 250 Commendation recipients whose dedication to education, historic preservation, patriotism, and community service continues to strengthen our communities, our state, and our nation. At this time, I would like to invite Mrs. Judy Henry to introduce and present the Excellence in Historic Preservation Award.
I had more than one job today. That's why all the ruckus. This is a good one. Here we go. My name's Judy Henry. You know I'm the chaplain for this chapter, Mary Slocumb. But when I started in the DAR, little did I realize that one of the best things about this organization is the amazing people that you get to see and meet and hear, and the amazing things that they do. I am privileged to introduce one of those people right now. After 6 months of working with the curator of pictures and photographs, as well as the division head of acquisitions, Wallace Kubler delivered a group of 12 circa 1900 lithographs to the Library of Congress in the fall of 2025. Published and printed by Kurg and Allison Lithography of Boston, there are portraits of George and Martha Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Revolutionary battle scenes, as well as Battle of Waterloo. This is the beginning of the beginning, hear that word, the beginning of the Wallace Kubler collection. More to come. There is no other donor to the Library of Congress younger than Wallace Kubler. Talk about your teen, he's not a teenager, but he's a young man with a big heart. His generosity is a gift to our nation and makes him a very worthy recipient of the DAR Excellence in Historic Preservation Award, signed by our President General Jenny Storage, the DAR National Historic Preservation Committee Chair, as well as our own region. Wallace, would you join me, please? excellence in historic preservation. Oh, gosh. And a medal that goes with it.
Serious. Thank you. I'm very humble. It was a labor of love, and it's something that I will cherish forever, and I very much appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Wallace surprised me this afternoon.
So I do have a small gift for the chapter, wherever it winds up on display.
Brought me to tears. I tell you what. And going forward, Wallace is a dealer in antique paper and photographs. So he is going to help us determine the best use of these pictures going forward. But can you explain, these are some of the images that are in the Wallace Kugler collection.
So basically, when I bought a collection early in 2025, there were several original copies with each of these. So each battle scene, there were a couple of copies of each. They are all original. They are to the time period. They're completely authentic. Basically, I donated a set to the Library of Congress in doing research to find out who the publisher was, because they were unfinished, unmarked. And they helped me figure that out. And when I realized they didn't have the specific set of images, my natural thought was, well, would you like them? So here we are today. Yeah. I mean, again, it was just the natural thing to do.
Thank you. Okay, do you want this back? Thank you, and thank you so much for this wonderful gift. One of the greatest blessings of every generation is the presence of individuals who quietly and faithfully invest in the lives of others, shaping communities not through recognition or titles, but through decades of service, encouragement, leadership, and love. As we gather today to remember the young patriots who helped shape our nation's founding, it is especially fitting that we also honor someone whose life has been devoted to pouring into generations of young people here in North Carolina. At this time, I would like to invite North Carolina State Representative Todd Carver to come forward.
Good afternoon. I'll say to you that I'm extremely honored to be here with you today. When Ms. Treadaway sent in an email to my office and said, hey, we're going to be presenting an award and we'd like for you to be involved in that. And we always, enjoy these opportunities, but it was really meaningful to me because I knew the person who was going to be receiving the award today, and it was Ms. Mary Morrow. And the reason that was so meaningful to me, let me just say how humbled I am to be here with y'all today, and I'm just honored to be here. I represent Mooresville in the North Carolina General Assembly, and my name is Richard Todd Carver. Most people know me as Todd, but when I went into the junior high school, where Ms. Morrow was my guidance counselor, the very first day I was there, the teacher said Richard Carver, and I didn't have the courage or the wherewithal to say, no, it's Todd, and so I went along with it. And so for 3 years of my life, people called me Richard Carver, and so I can sort of date when people know me of what it is they called me. And so, but during that time, Miss Morrow was more than just a guidance counselor to me. She was somebody who poured into me. And y'all talk about the importance of doing that with our young people. I just stand here as a testimony to Miss Morrow to say that there are many others. I just got to be the fortunate one today who could come and speak about it, that you poured into, and that how much that we, the Mooresville community, appreciate you and are honored to present this award to you today. This is the Order of the Longleaf Pine, and this is presented by the Order of the Longleaf Pine is the highest honor that the governor bestows upon civilians in the state of North Carolina. And I would just like for you to come up and meet me down here, and we'll present this to you.
Congratulations, Mary. She did all the hard work, though. She worked with the school system for over 32 years, and she's done countless other things. So she keeps thanking us for that, but she's the one who actually did the work there. So thank you. Thank you for your extraordinary life of service, and thank you for everything that you've done for Mooresville and beyond. Thank you. The Mary Slocumb chapter extends sincere appreciation to our many partners and volunteers who helped make today's commemoration possible. We are especially grateful to our co-host, the Mooresville Museum, Center Presbyterian Church and John Johnston, the Mecklenburg chapter Sons of the American Revolution, Charlotte Marie and Tosco Music, Representative Carver, Stirring Up History, our presenters, and all who contributed their time and talents to make this day special. Following the conclusion of today's program, we invite you to join us in the fellowship hall for a reception and time of fellowship. During the reception, you are invited to enjoy a book signing with Dr. Zeiss, historical artwork and prints by Dan Nance, exhibits and information from the Mooresville Museum, displays and commemorative materials from the Sons of the American Revolution and Mary Slocumb chapter of the NSDAR, and a special presentation by Stirring Up History on the history, significance, and preparation of traditional colonial era pineapple tarts, including an opportunity to sample this historic treat. So thank you so much for joining us as we remember the courage of the past, the blessings of liberty, and look ahead with hope towards the next generation of America. May we continue to be faithful stewards of the freedom entrusted to us. Would you please stand for the benediction?
This is a day that the Lord hath made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Amen. If you'll pray along with me in your faith and tradition as I pray in mine. We leave this place with a renewed sense of hope and expectation. Hope inspired by the examples of those we have honored today, expectation that you will continue to bless America with generous and dedicated people who will inspire us to be our best selves in service to our communities and our world. Watch over us as we go out from here. Keep us close.
All right, please remain standing for the retiring of the colors by the Mecklenburg chapter Sons of the American Revolution.
Color guard.
Attention, to the front, march. Mark time, march. Color guard, halt. To the right, face. Retrieve colors. To the left, face. By the counter march, march.
This concludes our program. May God bless you, and may God continue to bless the United States of America. The reception is in the fellowship hall. You can go through these doors if you'd like, and if you'll keep an eye on your watch if you want to do a cemetery tour. The museum will be leading another tour at 4 p.m.